Good morning, traders. Today is Thursday, August 4th. My name is Charles, and this is the Pirate Traders live stream. All right, well, yesterday we had a breakout of balance. We had a 3-day balance area here. We broke out of that balance yesterday. Breaking out of balance often leads to excess, so I am expecting a continuation of the move to the upside. Here today, we are opening inside the previous day's range. So we're expecting chop first thing in the morning, the market to grind up and down. We have a pretty tight range that I'm looking at here. I mean, it's kind of like you got this big node of volume from yesterday and then this big node of volume from the overnight. And they're kind of like right now, they're just stuck bouncing between that really tight range. So that may be what we do here for the first bit of the day, but then obviously we should start to push one way or another. Normally, if we get below the overnight low, I would start to get bearish, right? If we were able to push below that overnight low, come back up and find resistance, I'd be looking to short, but I'm not interested in that trade today. I'm more interested in seeing how the market reacts to that previous balance area high. So I've got the level marked as 41.3950. Keep in mind that's arbitrary. That's not an exact level. So we're really just looking as the market, if we get chopped this morning and the market breaks the overnight low and starts to head lower, what I'll be watching for is, do we find support in this general area, right? Not necessarily exactly on this level to a tick, but just looking to see when the market pushes down into this like 41, 34 to 44 area. Does it start to find support? If it does, that is bullish for continuation of the breakout of balance. If it does not, and it starts to pull back down into the range from 2 days ago, well, then I would get very, very bearish for continuation to the opposite end of balance. Okay? But I'm not going to get bearish yet until I see what happens if we test this balance area high. Okay, as it's very common to break out, come back down, and test that for support before you get continuation. So it wouldn't be bearish to do that, so I won't get bearish. As far as monitoring for continuation to the upside, pretty much if you want a really strong indicator to get bullish, you could wait till we get above yesterday's high, come back down and find support, and then look for continuation of the trend from there. You could also look at this area that's right around the halfback from overnight and the POC from yesterday, the 41.61 area. So that should be resistance as we're chopping around this morning at open. But if that chop is able to get its way above there and find support, you could also look to go long in this area to test yesterday's high. But if you wanted to be super cautious, the best way to do it is to wait for support above yesterday's high. So that is how I see the markets this morning. I expect chop, grinding up and down. Can we stay above the previous balance area? If so, I'm bullish. Can we get above yesterday's high and find support? If so, I'm bullish. Door number 3 would be just rotating around all day long, and that's of course possible, but to me that seems like the least likely scenario, as breaking out of balance rarely leads to immediate balance. It generally leads to excess. So the market's open in 2 minutes. And then the chop begins. Chop it up. Looking over at the NQ looks the same as the ES. Pretty much did the exact same thing. Found support at the base of its single prints in the overnight and has basically just been grinding around in a very tight range ever since. So same exact thing as the ES. If they can get above yesterday's high, find support, that is good for continuation to the upside. The difference, I would say, is with the NQ, if the overnight low breaks, you could look for a bit of a pullback. I would say, into support around 13,170. So if that overnight low breaks, you could look to get down into there. As opposed to the ES where I would just be watching. I wouldn't be trying to trade, you know. But you do have a 45-degree angle from the low, essentially, on the Q. So that should provide good support once the chop begins. It's a bullish. And the market is open. If you have not yet, please take just one moment to push that thumbs up button. You know you got to give the market a minute or two here to chop around anyway. Only a gambler would be taking a trade right now. John Lash, something to keep in mind, the unemployment numbers are coming out tomorrow, so it's possible that traders may want to wait and see. I would disagree. The balance rules are very potent, and they have nothing to do with what's going on macro in the economy. When you break out of balance, it is purely a technical play, and you almost always get excess. Not always, but almost always. So the possibility of a rotational day that goes nowhere today, you know, it's there, but it is the least likely scenario. All right, so we're looking for support at 41.49. That is the base of the G period single prints from yesterday. That will also keep us inside that overnight range. Because, of course, breaking that overnight low is a little bit bearish. Okay, so looking for support. Nap, is this one of those 45 degrees above balance area setups? I don't know what a 45 degree above balance area setup is. It's a breakout of balance as long as we stay above the previous balance area high. The 45 degree angle refers to the trade in the overnight. It's not technically 45 degrees here, but it's the fact that they just kept buying at higher and higher prices over and over again throughout the overnight, which is a sign of strength. Stronger hands stepping in and defending. Structure. Yeah, for sure. Is a little bit bullish. $170 people hanging out, only 84 likes. I sure would appreciate a little thumbs up, a little love for the pirate. I know it's not easy, but I sure would appreciate it. Okay, so once again, normally I'd start getting a little bearish below the overnight low, but I think it'll still count as a chop zone here if we can find support around that balance area high at 4140. Robert, I pressed the like button 4 times, still only netted 1 total vote. I tried. Appreciate you. It's a noble effort. All right, we're getting a little resistance at half back. That's a little bit bearish to see. If the market was chopping, it should be able to chop through there. So if it starts to turn previous support into resistance, that's bearish. There we go. Chop continues. All right, looking for some resistance here around 62 for the chop to continue. Nor Auto Trader. Good morning, traders. Music from now on. Getting resistance because we're in a chop zone. All day, every day. What's that, the shot? You love it? You want more? Look at that taper right there at the high. All right, so now the question is, can they turn the previous resistance into support? This node that was right around the opening price. As we pull back down into it, does that start to act as support, bringing in more buyers? Pumping those ticks? Seven-mile reach. In light of the music, I want to change my vote. Too late now. All right. 65% of you saying nothing. Love it as is. Copy that. Won't change a thing. Andrew, the whole world is falling apart with Russia and China, but hey, let's pump this market. Don't forget, markets pump even when they're bearish, right? Sometimes too many people get short too quickly, and the market has to rally to squeeze out those weak hand sellers and bring in the stronger hands. So just because you got bad news doesn't mean the market has to go down. It can easily go up. It's all about the two-way auction. Where is the inventory? Are more people long or short when the news comes out? Obviously, the news about Russia and China is priced in at this point. Meaning nobody woke up this morning and thought, I got to sell my stocks. Look what's happening in Russia. Elliot, where's the Charles becomes a VTuber option? I don't know what VTuber is, but it sounds like porn. Is it porn? There's a dollar figure. We can make that happen. Chilling with Dylan. I think we can all agree if you're going to have a co-host, it should be a talking parrot. So I got to get a parrot. I got to teach it how to read market profile. That's what it's going to take. All right, so testing this opening price, this node right around 56, 55 for support now. Can they start pumping those ticks above the zero line? If they can, that would be a little bullish. Andrew, but don't you find that us pump the market in both good and bad news? Yeah, that's the point I'm trying to make, is that if you try to take trades, particularly day trades, it's one thing if you're like a longer term investor, but if you're trying to take day trades based on fundamental news, you're going to lose money. You're never going to be profitable. It's the way the market moves throughout the day, intraday, is based on supply and demand. It's based on buyers and sellers, not anything that's happening in the news. Now, the news can change things. The news can cause a change in the market. So, for example, the market might be trending higher and some bad news comes out and you break that trend, but you don't need to speculate about whether or not the trend will break or whether or not the news is good or bad or what the market should do or any of that, because you have a technical signal to recognize when the trend is over. So if the trend breaks just slowly over time because we just run out of new buyers, or it breaks because a new piece of news comes out, or it breaks because the sky is falling, it doesn't matter why it breaks. You've got the technical signal. That's all you need to trade. All you need is a way for the market to tell you when there's been a change. And that's what we look at here every day, is the two-way auction process where we can see changes take place in the market. So we don't have to spend any time thinking or worrying or wondering about the news or what's going to happen or how is the market going to react to it. None of that matters. The market will tell us when it happens in real time what's going on. And that's all we need to worry about. That's all we need to think about. That's the magic of being a day trader. We only have to worry about what the market's going to do over the next few minutes. And that has nothing to do with the news. When I took my first class with Jim Dalton, he kept saying over and over in the class, every morning you have to stand in front of the mirror, look yourself in the eye, and say, I am a short-term trader. My long-term beliefs do not affect my short-term trades. To the moon. Tom, some people look at trend line breaks for the same reason. Absolutely. That is a market generated piece of information. Trend line breaking, moving average breaking. The point is that it's not a guess ahead of time. It's a piece of information happening in real time that's unarguable. It's a fact. We just broke that support. We just broke that resistance. It's a fact, not a guess. Raphael, above the opening price, do we still bullish? No, they didn't find support there. They passed through it, so the market is still chopping. It's still indecision. Just as many buyers as sellers in this market. If you go back and watch the first 5 minutes, I mentioned this area, which is acting as resistance right now. This area in here. If we can get above that and find support there, turn that into support, it's good for a trade to go test the high. But it's a little riskier trade. It's still a chop zone trade. If you want absolute confidence of bullishness, you wait for it to get above yesterday's high and find support there. But until we get above this area and find support, the highest probability is the market's just going to keep going up and down. There's just no one's taken charts yet. Cajun, regular trading hours this morning is a look above and fail so far. Beware, could change. No, it's not a look above and fail of the previous day until you look above it in the regular trading hours and then fail and pull back down. Right now, we just opened inside the previous day's range, which is not bearish or bullish. It is neutral. It means you got to wait for more information to find out. A look above and fail would be more information, but we haven't gotten that yet. I think of the overnight trade as its own thing and the regular trading hours as its own thing. So to get a look above and fail of yesterday's regular trading hours, we'd have to do it in today's regular trading hours. Oh, sorry. You're talking about the Russell. Not. Oh, my bad. Dyslexia. But thank you, Cyrus. What about NQ? What about NQ? Yes, NQ looked above yesterday's range. So again, not a look above and fail like you should be freaking out right now. It's just building support. This to me looks bullish. Value is overlapping to higher. You didn't even test the overnight low, which increases the odds you're going to test the overnight high. So yeah, NQ is looking bullish. I would look for support around the opening price, 13,268. Hanji, I think this will go lower. Advancers versus decliners and ticks not really confirming this up move the last 3 days. No 1,000 plus ticks, just low ticks and grind up on low volume. What do you think? It's a very good observation and true. I'm not really sure what to take away from it, to be totally frank with you. Obviously, it's a sign that this isn't FOMO buying, right? We aren't getting like people who are afraid that they're going to miss their chance. That's what gets you above 1,000 on the ticks. So it's been obviously more short covering and less new money buying. But bigger picture, it might just be a sign of caution. It might just be a sign that the bigger players are sitting out this move. But if you're right, and this thing is going to go lower, we will have a signal, right? We'll start to pull back down into the previous balance area, and we will not find support in here. Then we'll know it's going lower, right? And there's plenty of money to be made. We don't have to guess that it's going to go lower up here. If we wait to see if we find support, there's plenty of money to be made from here to here. Once we get the market generated signal, we don't have the support there. That's the signal we're going to the opposite end of balance. There's lots of money to be made on the way down. No reason to guess up here. Wait for the market to give us a signal. Andromeda, why is this a chop zone? Chop is something that happens when you open within the previous day's range and the market participants don't actually know where the market's going to go. They don't know if it's going to go up. They don't know if it's going to go down. And so what they'll do is they'll just take little trades. They'll go long. So the market will open. It'll start to pull back. They'll go long to see if they can get anything for it. But if it starts to come up and it gets resistance, they just get out really quick, right? They don't wait around because they're not convinced the market's going to go higher. They don't know. So they're gambling. They're just taking a guess. People who are gamblers, they don't stay in trades for a very long time because they don't have any confidence. It takes confidence to stay in a trade. So when you open inside the previous day's range and there isn't any clear momentum, there's nobody clearly in charge of the market, which is what the signal of opening inside the previous day's range tells you, then you must wait for one side to win. The buyers have to beat the sellers, or the sellers have to beat the buyers. The area where they're competing is called the chop zone, and they'll just keep chopping up and down inside that area until somebody wins. So as I've said this morning, to me, that signal of somebody winning is getting above this area around 4160 and then finding support there. That support is the signal the buyers are winning. Until then, choppity chop. Just short-term traders picking each other's pockets, as Jim Dalton would say. Trying to make a quick buck. So we created a poor high here in the B period because it is one tick above the A period high. That increases the odds the market is going to push away from the poor high, looking for support. And once it finds it, it'll come back and repair it, meaning get 2 ticks above that A period high. Once it does that, that is a little bit bullish, as it is a signal that the initial balance is to the upside. Jeremy Jones, as for trading behavior and psychology, I have noticed that I trade way better if I wait until after the initial balance, unless, of course, it's an obvious gap and go. I agree. It's the same thing I do. And it's what I think Jeremy is trying to explain here that I would love to have you guys consider, those of you that are scalping right now, is the preservation of your mental capital. If the first hour of the day, the market is just grinding up and down, is it going to go up? Is it going to go down? Is it going to do this? Is it going to do that? You are burning through the energy that your brain has to make decisions that day. You literally only have a certain amount of actual energy in your brain to compute things. And as you use that up, you run out. So if you spend the first hour of the day fighting the chop, trying to guess, is it going to go up? Is it going to go down? Is it going to do this? Is it going to do that? By the time you get later in the day, once you get a confirmation and the market's ready to make a move one way or the other, then you're exhausted and you can't think clearly and you won't trade as well for the rest of the day. But if you can say to yourself, the moment you see that the market is opening inside the previous day's range, if you can go, okay, where's my support? Where's my resistance? Cool, cool, cool. I'm just going to sit back and relax and just watch. The thought is not even going to cross my mind, should I go long or should I go short? I'm just going to let it chop up, and then I'll wait until that confirmation comes. If you do that, then you have way more mental energy for the rest of the day. You're more focused. You're more confident. You can do better trading the rest of the day because you didn't waste the first hour driving yourself nuts trying to guess what the market's going to do when it's in a completely random environment. So I find it extremely valuable. That being said, I am not a scalper. If you're a scalper, the best opportunities are in the first hour of the day, and that's your business. But not for me. Scott. Listen, I just use my CNBC analysis live bot interpreter that takes 100 trades a day based on CNBC. It's got a 100% win rate. It would as of late, man. Andrew, I noticed that you wait for breaks as opposed to selling high and trading in. You prefer to trade out. If you're talking about, I mean, it depends, right? Like if you're talking about when we're in a chop zone or we're in rotation or something like that, yeah, I want to wait for the breakout. That's the information. I need that new information in order to know to change the way I'm looking at the market. But it all just depends. So, for example, if we pulled back down into the previous balance area and we couldn't find support here, I would be going short for a trade to the opposite end of balance. So I would be trading to it in that case. But of course, I'd be waiting for the break of this one to get the signal for that one, you know? It's very, very simple the way I trade. I'm literally only asking myself two questions. What is the market doing and how good of a job is it doing? That information tells me, should I be going long or should I be going short? Then all I need is support and resistance. That's it. It's really that simple. Right now, what is the market trying to do? Who knows? I don't know. So there's no trades. If the market starts to push higher, I'll go, all right, the market's trying to trend higher. If it pulls back down and finds support, I'll go, okay, it's doing a good job. So now I know to look for long trades. Buy support, sell resistance. Simple as that. The waiting for stuff is waiting for the signal so I know to be going long or going short. Once I have that signal, it's merely a matter of support and resistance and good risk management. Ben, what chart am I using? It's called Window Trader. All right, the ticks are starting to trend down. That's a little bit bearish to see. We're looking for support down here. Yeah, on the ES, like I said, it's not anything exact. It's the balance area. So I can't tell you what to look for ahead of time, but I will tell you when it's finding support. I'll just have to see it to know what it is. Poor high and poor low. Okay, poor low repaired. All right, that's the third time the market's tried to go lower, and it's had good taper. There are buyers waiting down here. Element Prism. This is dip, question mark. Yeah, maybe you guys aren't understanding what I'm describing here when I say a chop zone. Is this a dip? It could be, but your guess is as good as mine. I don't know until I get more information. I don't know how many times I have to explain that. As long as we're inside the chop zone, there's no freaking way to know if it's going to keep going up and down. You just don't know. You got to wait for more information. So is this the dip and we're going to turn around right now and break out to the upside and get continuation and go straight to the moon? We might, but I don't know. And I couldn't possibly know. But I'll know once we do break out and come back down and find support. I'll know. But I won't know down here. And the good news is if we're going to the moon, I don't need to know down here. I can wait for the new information. Matthew, ticks is the clue here. We've been below the zero line. That is true. The ticks are a little bit bearish. That's one signal. But those ticks can instantly reverse themselves. So we need more than just the ticks. NQ getting rejected too. Getting rejected. No, it's still above the overnight low. If they break the overnight low, you could look for a little bit of a pullback down towards like 13,178. But right now, this is chop, my friend. The buyers have not lost, which means they could still win. Best to wait. Tom, love how much patience you have. That has always been one of my problems. Yep. That is one of the many ways the market takes people's money. Warren Buffett says the market is a instrument for taking money from the impatient and giving it to the patient. Alexandra, if I hear one more Warren Buffett quote. I wish I knew another one off the top of my head so I could force it on you. The man is smart. You can't deny it. And I don't mean just with like trading, like life in general. He understands how the world works. Stighty? What is the difference between a poor high and a weak high or low? So this is one of those things. This is just me personally. This is not the original Stoudemire way of looking at the markets, but just from my own observations, the way I differentiate the two is that a poor high is when two TPOs within the same range are within a single letter of each other. So A and B period within today's range, that makes it poor. Whereas if, for example, the market pushed up and it stopped at yesterday's high, which was a separate range, I would consider that weak. Okay? So weak is if it's a reference from a different day. Poor is if it's the higher low and it's a reference from the same day. And then any reference intraday is also considered weak. Okay? So that's the simplicity of what is the difference between a weak and poor reference. So how do they behave differently? Like, why do I have a term for one and the other? Well, because poor highs like this often cause the market to push away from them, but then they have a very, very high probability of getting repaired, that the market will come back and get at least one more letter up there. Whereas weak references don't function like that. Weak references, you create it. It becomes like a magnet tugging on price for a repair, but it does not cause a push away, and it doesn't have anywhere near the probability of repair that a poor reference does. Just pulling these numbers out of my butt, but I would say like poor reference, 80% chance it's repaired. Weak reference, like 40% chance. Like it's nowhere near as big a chance with a weak reference as it is with a poor. The one thing to note with weak references, though, the more of them that you stack up, the higher the probability that at least the first will be repaired. So if we had some weak highs, if we had like a weak high here and here and here and here, this first one wouldn't mean anything. It'd be no big deal. But when you created this one, it would have a slightly higher odds that this one's going to get repaired than this one because there's two. And this one would have slightly higher odds because there's three. And this one would have slightly higher odds because there's four. So like in this case, this weak reference would have extremely high odds of repair, whereas this one, not as much, right? All right, so we're getting ready to strike that 11:30. The clock to strike 11:30, where we will print the C period. So if we break the B period low to the downside, that is bearish, as the market will be one time framing lower. It would be okay to sell resistance, looking for continuation of that trend, but don't fall in love with it, because like I've been saying all morning long, there are likely longer term, deeper pocket, smarter brained swing traders waiting to do business down here. They love to buy a breakout. I mean, a retest of a breakout. So even if we start one time framing lower, which is bearish, it doesn't mean we're going to get much continuation. We may just find support and reverse this thing. If we start to trade, below say 34, then you could definitely jump on that train because it's a look above and fail of the balance area. And that increases the odds of a rotation to the opposite end of balance. So don't get too bearish prior to that signal. But there you go. The market is now one time framing lower. That is bearish to see. It would be acceptable to sell resistance now. But like I said, just don't fall in love with it. You still have a poor high in need of repair up here. So the market's pushing its way into support with a magnet tugging on it. And we know what can happen. Boop, boop, just like that. Trade safe, everyone. We'll see you here tomorrow morning. If you're a member of the brigade, head on over to the private stream. Let's ride. Also, if you haven't hit that thumbs up, I sure would appreciate it on the way out.